The vast majority of English sentences conform to one of these 5 patterns: subject, verb, subject complement, subject, verb, direct object, subject, verb, indirect object, direct object, subject, verb, direct object, object complement, subject, verb. Adverbial modifiers, single words, phrases, or clauses may be added to any of these patterns, and they may appear nearly anywhere, at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end. Predicate is the grammatical term given to the verb plus its objects, complements, and adverbial modifiers. Subject. The subject of a sentence names whom or what the sentence is about. The simple subject is always a noun or pronoun. The complete subject consists of the simple subject and any words or word groups modifying the simple subject. The complete subject. To find the complete subject, ask who or what. Insert the verb and finish the question. The answer is the complete subject. The devastating effects of famine, complete subject, can last for many years. You're going to learn that that's the predicate. But right now you're just focusing on the complete subject, the devastating effects of famine. Who or what can last for many years? The devastating effect of famine. Adventure novels that contain multiple subplots, that is the complete subject, are often made into successful movies. Who or what are often made into movies? Adventure novels that contain multiple subplots. The simple subject. To find the simple subject, strip away all the modifiers in the complete subject. This includes single word modifiers such as the and devastating, and phrases such as of, famine, and subordinating clauses such as that contain multiple subplots. The effects can last for many years, and so the simple subject is effects. Here the simple subject is novels. A sentence may have a compound subject containing 2 or more simple subjects joined with a coordinating conjunction such as and, but, or. Great commitment and a little luck make a successful actor. So commitment is a simple subject, luck is the simple subject. In imperative sentences which give advice or commands, the subject is understood but not usually present in the sentence. The subject of an imperative sentence is understood to be you. Put your hands on the steering wheel, and then the understood subject is you put your hands on the steering wheel. Subject after the verb. Although the subject ordinarily comes before the verb, the planes took off, occasionally it does not. When a sentence begins with there is or there are, or there was, there were, the subject follows the verb. In such inverted constructions, the word there is an expletive, an empty word serving merely to get the sentence started. So there are 8 planes waiting to take off. Planes is the simple subject. Occasionally, a writer will invert a sentence for effect. Joyful is the child whose school closes for snow. So child is the simple subject. Joyful is an adjective. It cannot be the subject. Turn the sentence around and its structure becomes obvious. The child whose school closes for snow is joyful. In questions, the subject frequently appears between the helping verb and the main verb. Do Kenyan marathoners train year-round? And so helping verb do, Kenyan is an adjective, simple subject marathoners, and then main verb train, and then year-round is a compound noun. The ability to recognize the subject of a sentence will help you edit for fragments, subject-verb agreements, pronouns such as I and me, missing subjects, and repeated subjects. So a sentence's verb is classified as linking, transitive, or intransitive, depending on the kinds of objects or complements the verb can or cannot take. Linking verbs connect the subject to a subject complement, a word or word group that completes the meaning of the subject by renaming or describing it. if the subject complement renames the subject, it is a noun or noun equivalent, sometimes called a predicate noun. So here you have a really long subject, an email message requesting personal information. Then the verb may be a scam. If the subject complement describes the subject, it is an adjective or adjective equivalent, sometimes called a predicate adjective. Last month's temperatures. So here you have the entire subject, then were is the verb, and mile is the subject complement. In other words, this mild modifies temperature. Therefore, it is a predicate adjective. Whenever they appear as main verbs rather than helping verbs, the forms of be, am, is, are, was, were, being, seen usually function as linking verbs. In the preceding examples, for instance, the main verbs are, be, and were. Verbs such as appear, become, feel, grow, look, make, seem, smell, sound, and taste are linking verbs when they are followed by a word or word group that renames or describes the subject. As it thickens, the sauce, verb, will look, linking verb, appealing or unappealing, subject complement. Transitive verbs and direct objects. A transitive verb takes a direct object, a word or word group that names a receiver of the action. If you have a transitive verb that does not have a direct object, then it's going to sound incomplete. So that's how you can tell when something is a transitive verb. When after the verb, it still needs something to make the sentence be a complete thought. The hungry cat, subject, clawed. This should be a verb, okay? So this hungry cat, subject, clawed, okay? This should be a verb. The bag of dry food, okay? So here you have the transitive verb clawed, and then here it needs a direct object. The direct object is usually the object that occurs right after the verb. So this should be a V, not an S. The simple direct object is always a noun or pronoun, in this case, bag. To find it, simply strip away all modifiers. Transitive verbs usually appear in the active voice, with the subject doing the action and a direct object receiving the action. Active voice sentences can be transformed into passive, with the subject receiving the action. Transitive verbs, indirect objects and direct objects. The direct object of a transitive verb is sometimes preceded by an indirect object, a noun or pronoun, telling to whom or for whom the action of the sentence is done. You give her some yarn. So you give her some yarn. So you is the subject, give is the verb, her is the indirect object. Why is this an indirect object? Because the two, you give to her some yarn. And so because you got to have the two over here, that makes this an indirect object. Okay. Also, normally you would say you give some yarn to her. That's how it's normally done. So that's why anything to her, and when you have to have the to plus the verb, the infinitive form, it becomes an indirect object. A direct object, you just say, I ate spaghetti. There's no to. I don't say I ate two spaghetti. Okay, I ate spaghetti. And in other words, the words that directly follow, the noun that directly follows a verb is a direct object. So the simple indirect object is always a noun or pronoun. To test for an indirect object, insert the word to or for before the word or word group in question. If the sentence makes sense, the word or word group is an indirect object. So you give to her, that's what I just said, some yarn, and she will knit for you a scarf. And so here, for you is an indirect object, to her is an indirect object, some yarn is a direct object, a scarf is a direct object. Transitive verbs, direct objects, and object complements. The direct object of a transitive verb is sometimes followed by an object complement, a word or word group that renames or describes the object. People, subject, often consider chivalry a thing of the past. And so here, object, a thing of the past, is the object complement. The kiln, I think if I said that right, subject, makes is the verb, clay farm. Clay is the direct object, firm and strong. So object complement means that this is the complement that complements the direct object. In other words, it describes the direct object, or it's the word group that follows or renames the direct object. So that becomes the object complement. When the object complement renames the direct object, it is a pronoun or noun such as thing, and when it describes a direct object, it is an adjective such as firm and strong. Intransitive verbs take no objects or complements. The audience laughed. In other words, you can't have a direct object after the verb laughed. You can have an adverb though. The audience laughed loudly, but that's an adverb. That's not a direct object, okay? A direct object is always a noun. Objects are always nouns. The driver accelerated in the straight way. Nothing receives the actions of laughing and accelerating in these sentences, so the verbs are intransitive. Notice that such verbs may or may not be followed by adverbial modifiers. In the second sentence, in the straight way is an adverbial prepositional phrase modifying accelerated. The dictionary will tell you whether a verb is transitive or intransitive. Sandra flew her small plane over the canyon. So the flew is a transitive verb. A flock of migrating geese flew overhead. Then that's intransitive. So in the first example, flew has a direct object that receives the action, her small plane. In the second example, the verb is followed by an adverb, overhead, not by a direct object. Subordinate word groups include phrases and clauses. Phrases are subordinate because they lack a subject and a verb. They are classified as prepositional, verbal, appositive, and absolute. Subordinate clauses have a subject and a verb, but they begin with a subordinating conjunction, such as although, that, or when, that marks them as subordinate. And when you have subordinate word groups, or a subordinate, like a complex sentence, you're going to have one clause less important than the other clause. Prepositional phrases. A prepositional phrase begins with a preposition, such as at, by, for, from, in, of, on, to, with, and usually ends with a noun or noun equivalent, on the table, for him, by sleeping late. The noun or noun equivalent is known as the object of the preposition. Prepositional phrases function as adjectives or as adverbs. As an adjective, a prepositional phrase nearly always appears immediately following the noun or pronoun it modifies. The hut had walls of mud, and therefore of mud is the prepositional phrase that modifies walls. Adjective phrases usually answer one or both of the questions. Which one? What kind of? If we ask which walls or what kind of walls, we get the sensible answer, walls of mud. Adverbial prepositional phrases usually modify the verb, but they can also modify adjectives or other adverbs. When a prepositional phrase modifies the verb, it can appear nearly anywhere in a sentence, just like an adverb. John walked his dog on a leash. Sabrina will in time adjust to life in Ecuador. During a mudslide, the terrain can change drastically. If a prepositional phrase is movable, you can be certain that it is adverbial. In the cave, the explorers found well-preserved prehistoric drawings. The explorers found well-preserved prehistoric drawings in the cave. Adverbial word groups usually answer one of these questions: when, where, why, how, under what conditions, to what degree. James walked his dog. How? On a leash. Sabrina will adjust to life in Ecuador. When? In time. The terrain can change drastically. Under what conditions? During a mudslide. In questions and subordinate clauses, a preposition may appear after its object. What are you afraid of? We avoided the bike trail that John had warned us about. So I will start, verbal phrase. A verbal is a verb form that does not function as the clause of a verb. A verbal is a verb form that does not function as the verb of a clause. Verbals include infinitives, the word to plus the base form of the verb, present participles, the ing form of the verb, and past participles form usually end in d, ed, en, ent. Infinitive, to dream, to choose, to build. Present participle, dreaming, choosing, building. Past participles, dreamed, chosen, built. Instead of functioning as the verb of a clause, verbals function as an adjective, a noun, or an adverb. Broken promises cannot be fixed. Constant complaining become wearisome. Can you wait to celebrate? Verbals with objects, complements, or modifiers form verbal phrases. In my family, singing loudly is more appreciated than singing well. Like verbals, verbal phrases function as adjectives, nouns, or adverbs. Verbal phrases are ordinarily classified as participial, gerund, and infinitive. Participial phrases always function as adjectives. Their verbals are present participles such as dreaming, asking, or past participles such as stolen or reached. Participial phrases frequently appear immediately following the noun or pronoun they modify. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. Participial phrases are often movable. They can precede the word they modify. Being a weight-bearing joint, the knee is among the most frequently injured. They may also appear at some distance from the word they modify. Last night we saw a play that affected us deeply, written with profound insight into the lives of immigrants. Gerund phrases are built around present participle, verb forms that end in ing, and they always function as nouns, usually as subjects, subject complements, direct objects, or objects of preposition. Rationalizing a fear, that's a gerund subject, can eliminate it. The key to a good sauce is browning the mushrooms. That's known as a subject complement, but it's also known as a gerund object. Lizards usually enjoy sunning themselves, direct object. The American Heart Association has documented the benefits of diet and exercise in reducing the risk of heart attack, object of a preposition. Infinitive phrases, usually constructed around to plus the base form of the verb to call, to drink, can function as nouns, as adjectives, or as adverbs. When functioning as a noun, an infinitive phrase may appear almost in other words, the infinitive phrases act like nouns. So they appear where nouns usually appear in a sentence. So usually as a subject or as an object. So therefore, infinitive phrases can be used as subjects or as objects. So to live without health insurance, so that's an infinitive subject, is risky. Infinitive phrases functioning as adjectives usually appear immediately following the noun or pronoun they modify. The 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote. The infinitive phrase right, the infinitive phrase modifies the noun right. Which right? The right to vote. Adverbial infinitive phrases usually qualify the meaning of the verb, telling when, where, how, why, under what condition, or to what degree an action occurred. Volunteers rolled up their sleeves to wade through the floodwaters. In some constructions, the infinitive is unmarked, that is, the to does not appear. Graphs and charts can help researchers to present complex data. So when the to does not appear, that means the to is understood.